Monday mornings with Matt and Kevin. Topics that come up around the dinner table will be given the truth treatment with no punches held and no falsehood left standing.
There's so much to talk about, so let's get down to business. Here are Matt and Kevin.
Welcome in, everyone. Monday mornings with Matt and Kevin. I am Matt. He is Kevin, as he always says. And I wonder sometimes, Kevin, they listen to our voices, and I wonder, do they know who is who? Like sometimes I've wondered that. But today is Halloween. We could certainly, talk about that. Is it a Catholic holiday? That has certainly come up in Twitter circles as of late. Tomorrow is All Saints Day. But we are here on a Monday morning to kind of really, talk about topics that have been prevalent during the week, things that we've seen on Twitter, things that we've seen on the news, and just kind of go with it. So I forget the slogan that you usually lead with. If you want to talk politics, ask your kitten or whatever. I don't have one.
Something dumb.
Something dumb like that. Yeah, I used to have I actually started with, when I was a kid, I had one cat. It got to 6, then it got to 12, and we were breeding like rabbits, as the Holy Father Francis, wants all of us to do. Anyway, focus. Yeah. So Kevin, welcome in. One of the things that I kind of wanted to kind of introduce with us today was there's so much going on Twitter as of late with that word schism. I see it popping up all over the place. And what really gets me, and I'm kind of, curious your experience with this, always having grown up in the state of a contest, community or whatever you would want to call it. Just this morning, or as of late, Father, air quotes, Matthew Schneider said something along the lines of, sedevacantists are in schism. And the thing that gets me seeing these sort of headlines come up all the time is like, well, do you ever notice that they don't say these things towards any other religion, right? They have these ecumenical prayer circles. They'll worship Pachamama. They'll stand in Assisi and they'll have interfaith prayer meetings, all those sort of things. But there's never that, hey, you're a heretic. Hey, you're a schismatic. Hey, you're an apostate. They never use that language with them. It's always directed towards us, the state of a contest. And I think there's like this real disconnect as of what schism even is. Just the other day, I saw another tweet come up that was something along the lines of, Francis is really, Eric Sammons was the guy who said it. Francis is just, he's not qualified to be the Pope. That's all it is. And I tweeted something along the lines of like, they think that the papacy is just some guy that they found off the street. Why don't we hire him, give him the title Pope, and roll the dice, see where it goes? They don't understand really the power and the authority given to the man whoever it is elevated to the chair of Peter. So I kind of wanted to touch on this with you very quickly before we kind of dive into the topics that we had planned. Do you think that when they, like Matthew Schneider, when they can't wait to attack sedevacantists as, you're in schism, and they never do it with anybody else, do you think they don't see a problem with the Protestants or the Orthodox or the atheists who Francis said can get into heaven? Where do you think the disconnect lies? If you have any thoughts, really.
I think some of them are just, I think some of them, they're scared. And I think there's two different reasons why. It's just purely my opinion. Some of them are truly of good faith, goodwill, good men trying to do their best. And sedevacantism scares them to death because they think it's probably true, but they're too afraid to admit it, too afraid to say that Rome is in apostasy, that they're a different church. And if that's the case, they've probably been going to a non-Catholic church for their entire lives. That's a tough pill to swallow. So I understand the fear on that side. The other side, where I think there are a few of these men who are of bad will, they are gatekeepers. They're the ones who are trying to keep as many people as possible away from the true faith. And I think there are some of them. There's not that many, but there are some of them. And I think they are scared because they know, again, that the truth lies in the situation as we see it, that the Catholic Church still exists. Of course, it must always exist, and it must always be pure, it must always be holy, one Catholic apostolic, etc. And it cannot be in Rome, so it must be, as the position we find ourselves in as sedevacantists, that must be the case. And I think that there are some of them. Father Schneider, maybe one of them, is scared because he sees that The one thing they don't want people to go to, look at Bergoglio. What's the one thing he preaches against is these rigid Catholics, these traditionalists. That's the one
proselytism.
Exactly. I mean, he will say over and over again, the worst thing in the Catholic Church is the rigid traditionalists. I mean, their worst fear, the evil men in this group, their worst fear, their one fear is to have people actually follow the one true Catholic Church.
But they don't even use the definitions properly. You know,
True.
they don't even, and that's what's funny with all of this here is they don't even understand, like, okay, what has as recent as Pius XII taught what schism is, what heresy is, what apostasy is, what all of these, you know, these means that break yourself off from the body of Christ. What even are they? You will never see these men, you know, tell a Protestant that they're in heresy. Like, man, you will never see these men tell the Orthodox that your position is schismatic.
Bergoglio, you know, they just recently met with the Orthodox, who are literally, they are actually by definition schismatics. They recognize him as Pope and say, we still don't recognize your authority. That is schismatic, and they are by definition outside the church. Yet Bergoglio will meet with them and will, of course, bash over and over the traditionalists. It's absolutely positively insane.
They just had another one of those prayer meetings or whatever, and the end result is always the same: dialogue, fraternity, you know, all these things. I made when the listeners get to my segment that I did for this week. The great thing about all of this is that they talk about fraternity and all of these things as the end goal, right? This is where it stops. And the headlines that I came across when I was making the my segment was really just, you know, everyone is welcome. This is the be all end all for the synod. Everyone is welcome. We are a church that welcomes everybody. You know, everyone is drawn here. And what I kind of touch on a little bit, and the listeners will get to this later on in the show, but they make no qualifications whatsoever. They don't say, you know, you need to be baptized, you need to profess the Catholic faith, you need to submit to the Roman pontiff, you need to, you know, put aside, you know, maybe your sins, your vices, you know, you need to live in accordance with the laws of the church. They never say that. In fact, all of these social issues, abortion, which Francis, for whatever reason, continues to hire pro-abortion leaders to whatever position that
he's evil.
And
he's an evil person.
He's waving in our face.
I mean, and no one even denies that now. I mean, Eric Sammons, even maybe Schneider. I mean, Father Schneider. They probably admit it too. And again, as you say, they just don't understand that you can have an evil man as Pope, but they cannot, as the head of the church, promulgate error. And he meets with the Orthodox. He is saying we are fraternal brothers with the Orthodox, with the Muslims, with the Hindus. This is absolute easy, no question about it, apostasy. A 10-year-old can understand it, but somehow they can't get it into their heads that the Pope cannot commit apostasy. Can't.
And to you know, being the Feast of Christ the King on Sunday, the 30th, Pius XI was so clear. One sentence: let the whole world revere Christ as King. Can you hear Bergoglio say that? Maybe if he was talking to Catholics, maybe, because he's very good at least common denominator. He'll address his message to who he's speaking with, right? If he's got an audience full of Catholics with the rosaries in their hand, maybe he'll throw him a bone. But if he's got Muslims and Orthodox and Jews and whatever, he would never, ever say that. He appeals to his audience. So I don't know, just a lot of craziness going on with these things, but let's make a huge turn here. Elon Musk has purchased Twitter. Now, he started this whole thing off with let that sink in. I don't know if you saw that, but he was carrying a sink, literally a sink that he undid from his plumbing.
He is so cheesy. He is so
walked
cheesy.
into Twitter and let that sink in, and he entered the room. So the discussion naturally is free speech, quote unquote, free speech, and will Donald Trump return to Twitter? That has been the discourse that I have heard over these last few days. I think a lot of right-wingers view Elon Musk as some savior. I think that they are just thinking that, you know, this guy is going to clean house, this guy is going to do the right thing. and he's going to just, let everything rain. I think he's a bit better than whatever we had, but he's made some very problematic statements as well on his Twitter, concerning his faith. What did he say? Like,
he's a
when I die, I'm
he's
probably, when I die, I'm probably going to hell. Like, who cares? Okay, what have you? But the big thing is Trump coming back? And I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that? Do you think he's going to bring somebody like him back? I mean, that would really stir the Twitter world. That would stir the social media universe. Where do you think he's going to go with this?
I think Elon would definitely bring him back. I think more of the question is, would Trump come back? Because Trump started Truth Social, which is supposed to be a competitor of Twitter. So Trump,
True.
if he returns to Twitter, is giving up on Truth Social, which I have no idea where they are now. I never joined it, and I imagine it probably didn't do great because most people stayed on Twitter. So if Trump rejoins Twitter, then I think he would have to be pretty much by definition giving up on Truth Social. Maybe it's worth it. Maybe he sees that his run for presidency, which he's almost surely going to do in 2024, unfortunately, he's 84 or whatever. Again, stop with these ancient old men running for president, for goodness sake. Haven't we seen enough of that? But I think Elon would invite him back. I bet Elon's probably invited him back already, because of course for him it's an absolute win, because you're going to get a ton more interaction. You're going to get probably
traffic,
a million more people. I mean, it's going to be huge for Twitter. But I don't know if Trump's going to do it.
Yeah, actually, I didn't think of that side of his own perspective for it. I mean, I think maybe if he does, I don't know. There's a part of me that says he can't help himself. There's a part of me that says that he can't wait to get on there and stir the pot, which he does so well, troll the left, which he does so well, and throw those zingers out there just in time for the midterms. Now, I wonder if, I think there are a lot of Republicans, I was reading about this morning when I was looking at some polling data and all of that, there are a lot of Republicans who are very happy that he is a little bit distant now, where these elections don't involve Trump. I wonder if feeling the pulse of the people, feeling the pulse of the polls, really, if there are some people who feel like, you let him back on Twitter, he's going to gain the traffic, like you and I were just saying, that is really unmatched. I don't think anybody can draw the people that he really does. No. And is it going to ruin any of our polls? Is it going to ruin any of our numbers? I think that might be a concern for some. I did see some of the House votes, which they predict to really lean Republican, saying, we don't have any pro-Trump MAGA candidates here. We're going to stick with the old way of, the McCain, the Romney, the stereo. Right. And they're comfortable with that. And so, I don't know. I think he would love to make a comeback. Personally, I think he would love to comment on the midterms. And I think that, which are coming up, by the way, we've got about a week. And I think he would love to just, stir the pot and troll even more, especially with this Paul Pelosi thing. I'm sure you saw all this.
Oh. Good grief.
Unravel. I have a crazy, I don't know why I go down this rabbit hole so, but makes me wonder if this whole thing was, if they knew each other. From what I'm gathering as of this morning, they knew this man who raided the Pelosi home, and just, was he a friend? Wink, wink. They all run trafficking rings. They all run, they're all Satanists at heart. They do all of these child, you just know it. You just know it. And it wouldn't shock me if this was one of the friends. And I think he brought over a hammer, and Paul Pelosi also had a hammer or something. I don't know if you heard that, but they were like fighting each other with hammers. Like, do you just pull the hammer out of your back pocket?
Sounds like a movie script or something, right?
Yeah, it does.
Bad one, a really bad movie. Right? That's the world we live in.
This woman is third in line to the presidency. She's
drunk
has a net worth.
Time.
Right. Exactly. She has a net worth of, I don't know, $200 million on a $200,000 salary. I don't know, how do you get rich in politics like that? But she lives in the wealthiest neighborhood of San Francisco. She has protective detail. They give her this. She has full. I mean, she's third in line to the presidency here. There's no footage of this. There's no security anywhere. Like this thing, this guy was invited over for a little playtime while Nancy was out. Wink, wink. What do you think? Maybe?
It sounds like it. I mean,
could be.
Honestly, it's one of those things. It's like, I mean, do I really care? I mean, it's so gross.
Yeah.
the whole thing is like, I mean, it's politics in a nutshell. I mean, I'm not one of the guys who, goes around saying that Trump's the Antichrist and all these things. I think that gets kind of silly. I mean, but I do think you do. And I mean, again, since, celebrating the Feast of Christ the King, you really have to understand that politics cannot succeed if you don't have Christ as King. It can't. You will have anarchy. You will have chaos without Christ at the head, because that's just how it works. Because without Christ and without morality as your societal structure, you're going to eventually have anarchy, and we're seeing that more and more. And I think, I'm like with Elon, I think he could make it a better place to tweet, a better, more quote unquote free place, but that's it. I mean, you look at him as a person, he creeps me out. I've watched some of his interviews. The dude's weird. Now, I think maybe it's because he's
very strange.
He's autistic or something, or I don't know, but he's odd. And honestly, I don't like him. I mean, I like on Twitter, he's actually pretty funny, but when you watch his interviews, he creeps me the heck out. And it's like, am I going to put any of my trust in society into his hands or into Trump's hands? Trump has some good things about him, but boy, the guy is a disaster.
Yeah. At $44 billion, they could have funded Ukraine, for a week. Like the money should have gone there.
Right.
The tweets are kind of comical from him. He's a little bit of a breath of fresh air from what we've seen, but I don't know. We'll see where it goes. But anyway, so coming up is my segment. You'll hear a little bit about communion and the hand, how that originated, where it came from, and how it kind of took prevalence at the council. I take some excerpts from Father Cicada's book, Work of Human Hands. So you'll get to hear that, and a little bit more on R&R. And coming up, Kevin and I are going to discuss some future things going on in the educational movement a little bit that I wanted to touch on, the vaccine, and you'll have to stay tuned and listen. We'll be right back. We are Catholics, faithful to all of the teachings of Holy Mother Church. We believe that the chair of Peter has been vacant since the death of Pope Pius XII in 1958, and that the religion being promulgated upon us by the Vatican II Church is not the Catholic religion founded by Jesus Christ. Welcome aboard. So last week, I told you all that I picked up Father Cicada's book called A Work of Human Hands, a theological critique of the Mass of Paul VI. And due to time constraints, I have not been able to dig into the book just yet, but I certainly did my share of browsing. And, the topics in this masterpiece are just endless. And there's one section that I did actually want to share briefly with you all today. And that is a section regarding the practice of Holy Communion in the hand. And the first thing that I actually found interesting was that in 1968, the body of bishops were polled on this issue, and the results, believe it or not, were overwhelming. Virtually no bishop saw it proper that any member of the laity receive the Holy Eucharist in their hand. So, the question kind of becomes, well, where did this practice come from? So on page 370 of his book, Father Cicada cites 16th century Protestant Martin Bucer, who was a heretic who denied Christ's real presence in the Eucharist on the issue. And here, Bucer writes, quote, "Something introduced out of a double superstition. First, the false honor they wish to show this sacrament, and secondly, the wicked arrogance of the priests, claiming greater holiness than that of the people of Christ by the virtue of the oil of consecration. For although for a time concession can be made to those whose faith is quite weak by giving them the sacrament in the mouth when they so desire, if they are carefully taught, they will soon conform themselves to the rest of the church and take the sacrament in the hand." End quote. Communion in the hand was a tool of the heretics, a practice designed to attack the dogma of the real presence. Bishops in Germany, Belgium, and France actually began to petition the Holy See for permission to administer the sacrament in this way. And although Paul VI, personally opposed the practice, the windows were indeed opened. You can actually Google this if you just search Sacred Congregation for Divine Worship, Instruction on the Manner of Distributing Holy Communion. You can read it all right there. This was promulgated on May 29th, 1969. And again, it's called Sacred Congregation for Divine Worship, Instruction on the Manner of Distributing Holy Communion. And, of course, as these exceptions started being made, the heresy spread like wildfire. And by 1977, communion in the hand became a practice for the Catholic Church in the United States. And as I said, you can read more about this in Father Cicada's book, Work of Human Hands. It starts on page 369. I'll have more to share on this as the weeks go on. On October 28th, 2022, Crux magazine posted an article called Synod Organizers Sell Process as Cementing Catholicism as Church of Both and. When my eye caught that headline, I couldn't help but wonder what a Church of Both and even meant. So of course I had to click it. And this you have to hear. This is straight from the article. Quote, speaking to the priests from the Italian diocese of Belluno Feltre in Treviso in 2007, hope I pronounced those cities right, Benedict XVI was told by one of the veteran priests in attendance that while he was in seminary, he had been chastised by a spiritual director for enjoying soccer more than Eucharistic adoration. And he wanted, of course, Benedict's opinion. In response, Benedict said that Catholicism, a little simplistically, has always been considered the religion of the great both and, not of great exclusions, but of syntheses. Catholic meaning precisely those syntheses, end quote. This article actually goes on to say, and again, you can look this up yourself, that the Catholic religion is a religion for everyone. All are welcome here. Yes, this statement is true to an extent. All are indeed welcome here, but there are some qualifications, for membership. First, one must be properly baptized, and two, he has to profess the Catholic faith and live within accordance of all of the teachings of the Holy Catholic Church. But, you never hear them say that, do you? A heretic cannot be a member of the church. A schismatic cannot be a member of the church. What is required here is unity, being one of the 4 marks of the church even. All of the members of the church must, by consequence, profess the same faith. This is just necessary, lest the church have varying degrees of Catholicism inside of her, which is, basically what the R&R crowd wants you to think or believe. Anyway, the article goes on to say, quote, Maltese Cardinal Mario Gretsch, head of the Vatican Office of the Synod of Bishops, said he hopes the Synod will, quote, help everyone in the church. No one is excluded because the Spirit can show something to the church through everyone. I'll keep going. On our side, there is this availability, this openness, this desire that no one feels excluded. Even those who are saying, well, there are some who resist. He said, saying, fine, fine, come forward. Let us walk together. End quote. Can't you just see where this synod is going? A church that just listens to everyone. You know, everyone has something to offer the church. I mean, I'm sure James Martin will be at the welcoming party. You're listening to Monday Mornings with Matt and Kevin on the Catholic Family Podcast. Nice job, Matt, with that segment.
Beautiful.
Didn't he do great?
Oh, he did a great job.
I mean,
we got to start paying.
It's a home run. We gotta hire this guy.
We're gonna upgrade him.
That was beautiful. That was beautiful. He's gonna no longer sweep. Did you know? I have this book of like crazy facts or whatever, and the guy who like runs or owns Cheerios or something like that started off as a Cheerios sweeper. Like he used to like their jobs were to sweep the crumbs from the floor.
Respect.
And now he's like the CEO. So maybe I better start find a factory and sweep the crumbs. So I came across a headline this morning, and you and I were talking about this last week, and it seems to be, I don't know if social media just hears us and they give us ads or news articles that are kind of relevant. But the story this morning that I wanted to touch on really quick was how kids don't know how to read. And I don't know if you saw this. It's for whatever reason, it's making its rounds on social media, on Yahoo, on a lot of the news sources, and they're showing that it's a problem not only in the lower class communities but in the wealthier communities too. And they were saying that the problem is that we've gotten away from phonics and we're using all of these tricks, which I talked about last week a little bit on well, what do you think the word means and all of that. And kids don't know how to decode. Kids are learning different ways on how to read that aren't successful. They change their mind a million times. And, it really, as a former teacher, it struck me to read these things because all of the things that they were saying in the article as being ineffective, we were told that this is gospel truth, that this is how you have to do it. And so what it was that kids they're able to read based on the concept. How can I word this? They're able to read based on the concept of looking at sight words. So a sight word is a simple word, cat, dog, mouse, whatever. You can look at it and just read. You don't have to decode it. You don't have to sound anything out. It's recognizable by the eye. They have found that using this method, now that the years have gone on and they're able to study the results, is that is how kids are now reading. They're looking word for word with that mindset of a sight word mentality rather than decoding, rather than looking at a word that they might not know and sounding it out. That skill has been totally lost. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there as a little follow-up from last week, how these quote-unquote experts have absolutely no idea what they're doing. And I wouldn't shock me if later on in the future, the study that they found out this past year or whatever with this new method of reading is suddenly debunked as well. Anyway,
I believe it. And when I was in high school, I actually had a tiny class, at a Catholic school, and it was, I would say, half of the class could barely read out loud. And I mean, really, really, really struggled. And so much that there were 3 or 4 of us who had to pretty much usually read everything in literature.
Take over.
You just couldn't bear with it. And it was terrible because by the time you reach high school, you got to be able to read out loud. I mean, you're at a point where you can't take the time to read, at half speed or, quarter speed. And it really was a very strange thing because many of these kids had been in Catholic schools and had gone through good education. And I don't really know. It was really interesting. I don't know what the reason was. And I still don't really know. Maybe it's, as you say, maybe it's literally the way they're being taught. But I think part of it is people just don't read anymore. It's not part of the everyday life. Kids go and they play their MP3 players, or their computers, or their their phones or whatever, and they don't read.
Did you, when you were a kid, did you have to read the back of the cereal box?
Of course I did.
Of course.
My parents would get us these gigantic books for Christmas. We'd have like your facts book, the crazy facts. We'd have books like that. We'd have Guinness World Records. We would have Ripley's Believe It or Not. We'd have these every year. My parents would get these books, and when we ate at the table, we weren't always allowed, but for informal meals, we'd go and read while we're eating. All the time, we were always reading. And when you do it, obviously it's like a muscle. The more you do it, the better you are at it. And I just think it's something that's being lost. I could see in the next generation or two, I don't know if half of the people are going to be able to read, period. I know that's extreme, but I really wonder if eventually you're going to get into a pure, speaking and listening and seeing, and not even having to actually read, if that makes any sense. It wouldn't.
Yeah, I was actually, makes me think, I was going to ask you this as well. We kind of stopped teaching spelling because they determined that it was a waste of time.
And it's racist.
And because
have you seen that? I'm not even kidding. I saw that someone was like suing a state or something. This is a true story. I
really
have a link to it. Someone was like trying to pass a bill to no longer have a spelling test because it was racist.
It's racist
because it was so hard for the black students to be able to spell or something. And it's just like, do you not understand that saying that is like the most racist thing I've ever heard in my life? Like, hey, get rid of spelling because black kids are too dumb. I think, are you serious? And this was real, honest to goodness news. This was some advocacy group. They're just so blatantly. What world do we live in, man? Oh, it's so
Biden just said this, talking about extra room on airlines. I don't know if you saw that, but he actually said it's racist. I don't. If I can somehow get that into the later on in the show, include that snippet. It's an audio. He's at the podium, straight face as usual, saying that it hurts minorities. That the room you've got on your flight is somehow racist.
Some airlines, if you want 6 more inches between you and the seat in front, you pay more money. But you don't know it until you purchase your ticket. Look, folks, these are junk fees. They're unfair, and they hit marginalized Americans the hardest, especially low-income folks and people of color.
Anyway, what isn't these days? But yeah, so the thought was, all the kids are using iPhones, they're using Androids, they've got laptops, nobody hand writes anymore. Spelling is a waste of time because the thing is going to correct it for you. And for me, I don't know about you, but I have actually noticed that my spelling as I've gotten older, it's funny because I'll be handwriting something. Yeah, you're shaking. Yeah, people can't see, but you're shaking. Is that
crap? How do you spell that word? I do it
right. I've got
every day.
Paper, and I'm like, I can't spell it.
Terrible.
Because you're just used to your phone correcting it.
Totally.
You're used to, let me just take a shot at it and see what I could. Or if you can't get anything close, which happens, you speak into it and it'll say. What word did I use the other day? I used a word on Twitter, and I'm like, I couldn't. I don't know, whatever it was, I couldn't spell. I had no idea, so I just spoke it into the the text to or speech to text, and it went right up. But yeah, my spelling is getting worse, and
totally.
I think it's good to teach it to kids, but I also wonder though, is the world going that way? Like, do we really, do you see like smartphones and the internet going away? It's not going to go away.
Unless we have some sort of bomb or something. Yeah,
there are some
a photon bomb or whatever it is that shuts down all electricity. Maybe. Yeah.
I actually have heard things like that, theories like that in the future that this whole internet thing is going to go away. It's a fad that will someday die down. We're going to go back to whatever we were before.
I mean, it'd be good in a way. I mean, it would be bad, obviously, because then you couldn't do podcasts, and then I wouldn't know how people that I know. But right. I mean, it's a really interesting question. I did an interview that I hope it comes out sometime in the near future about the Catholic land movement, and it's just the idea of God didn't make us to be looking at screens all day. I just firmly believe that is not how we are physically made to be. And people are in so much pain, they're in so much mental anguish, and they have so much depression, etc. And I really think part of it, they're not outside enough. They're not doing hard work, which I think we were made to do.
That was my segment with Mega, if you remember. She's like, it ruins their imagination. The imagination's gone with kids these days, and it's weird for me to think back. Like you almost always have something on you. I have an Apple Watch. I have an iPhone. My Mac is here. You're always in touch. And to think back, like, it is so crazy to me to think that I grew up with none of this. Like, I went my whole, it's like, it seems like a different world. Like, I woke up in the morning and then went to bed that night, and throughout the span of the entire day, I didn't look at a screen at all. Like, I didn't text anybody. I didn't go online. There was no internet. It seems like I didn't live that. I don't know how to word it. I don't know how to portray it, but you know what I mean? Like
a different life.
Like what? Like right. Like I went out into the, I didn't drive at the time yet, but I went out into the world and just, never looked at the phone or never. So weird. I don't know. Such a strange concept. But anyway, so this thing with vaccines, right? They're kind of, the unvaccinated are starting to be more and more vindicated. And this thing, I think it was in New York State, where all of the people who were fired / laid off for the refusal to take the vaccine were rehired with back pay. So all of the money that they lost is like, here's a dump into your bank account. And as you and I were kind of saying off the show, Kevin, like there are a lot of people who are really touting, like that I'm not vaccinated or what have you. And I think for myself, I was kind of, thinking on this the other day when you and I were kind of, throwing ideas off each other, was that I turned down some opportunities because of the vaccine. The hinge, what word would I put here?
Linchpin.
See if I didn't, the bridge. If only I studied spelling more. The bridge between me and these opportunities was the vaccine, and I didn't do it. And so to me, there is like that personal, pride of like, what, like, okay, I stuck to my principles here. I refuse these opportunities because I'm not getting this. But I also see your point where now that there are these people who are, turning themselves into a superiority complex, like I am so much better than you because I don't have that venom.
I've seen people saying like let's do an IQ test and we'll judge it on who's been vaccinated or not. It's just like, come on. I mean, I'm really glad I didn't get it. I mean, truly, I'm really glad because it's scary. I don't know what's going to happen to people, and it looks like it could be really, really bad. And I think that's something that's why I didn't get it, because I didn't trust it. Yeah. I didn't trust the science, and there's many reasons for that. Partly because I'm a major time conspiracy theorist, and
same.
In this case, it helped me out. But I understand why a lot of people got. Now, some people, the people who really frustrate me, are the ones who got it because it was affecting their. I couldn't.
Yeah, I can't go to McDonald's. Yeah.
Really? Okay. Then I don't know. I don't have too much sympathy. But many people, their doctors said, "Hey, this is good. You should get it." And they said, "Cool. You're the doctor. You're the professional." So I mean, a lot of these people were literally just following the experts. And what are you supposed to do? The reason why we didn't do it is because we're deep down every rabbit hole that's ever been dug in the last 100 years. And I think that's why I think we have our eyes open to that. But many people didn't. And you know what? I guarantee you a lot of people who got it are now like, oh, shoot, what on earth is going on in my body? And I bet you they don't need someone to tell them that they made the wrong decision. But they didn't make it necessarily a moral decision. They just made the wrong decision, in my opinion.
What was it like there, though? Like, because here, it was very different based on where you lived. Like New York City, I remember you could not go into any restaurant or what have you without that. In other spots, like, it was kind of shrugged off, like, put your mask on if you want, but go ahead. Was Germany that you found more strict? Was it more laxed, area based? Like, what did you kind of notice as all this?
I mean, it was strict. I mean, I had to take a COVID test at one point every day, I think, or is it every other day? No, I think every day I had to take a test.
Oh, you did?
To be able to work. And there was a time at the peak of it, they technically weren't supposed to let me in the building unless I had taken the test first. I mean, it got pretty ridiculous. And we were doing, you had to work all the time with a mask on, supposedly. And I was delivering the mail, for goodness sake. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do this. And so, when we were sorting in the warehouse, you had to wear the mask and you had to wear the FFP2 mask. And this was for 2 or 3 hours. And That's not good. It's not healthy. It's
awful.
terrible. If you've had to do it, it is no fun. But it was pretty strict, even in Bavaria, which is probably the most conservative. And that's not true. Eastern Germany is probably in some ways more conservative, but Bavaria is supposed to be conservative. And boy, they had every rule there was pretty much.
Yeah, and I think they shoved these things on our faces. They made us, first of all, it made you sweat. Like, I remember having it on at some points, required for like a doctor's visit or whatever, and it's like, dude, I feel like I'm starting to warm up over here. Like, can I take this off? And it's crazy. So I'm glad to see that the people who were really facing a lot of repercussions for not complying are getting that that pushback or that not that pushback payback of the money that they lost and all of it. So that's a good thing. But yeah,
don't get on your high horse though.
Don't get on your high horse.
Don't act like we're superior. I saw some crazy interview with, I don't even remember who it was, I think French general or something, is like, and now we are the elites and we have proven it that we deserve to like rule the world. It was so bizarre.
These are probably the people who thought that Trump was going to ride in on a tank and overthrow. I saw that. I remember cool. In January. It would have been. I kind of would have liked to have seen it, but yeah, people. I remember people really thought that on Joe Biden's inauguration that Donald Trump was going to like swoop in on a tank or like on a horse, and like I mean, it would have been fun to see, but come on, like I'd rather watch Nancy Pelosi joust with I think that's how we should have our elections, Kevin. I think they should all have sword fights, and whoever wins is the representative for the
I'll tell you right now, they're just as good as the democratic system. I think that's for sure. Right? It's just, hey, monarchy was solved many times by a joust or a sword fight. So hey, let's go. Let's get back to that.
Yeah. So just to wrap up really quick, I saw this ad. I hate the political ads. They're everywhere. You can't watch TV. You can't go on YouTube. You can't do anything without these things popping up. This one woman is she has kind of stayed away from the topic as it is, but she said, I'm pro-life. I support the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, and I believe that human life begins at conception. That's like been the all she's really said. The ads against her, they called her a far-right MAGA extremist who's dangerous on abortion. The rhetoric is insane. How do you be dangerous on abortion? Safe abortions, right?
Doesn't want us to murder babies.
Yeah. Those safe abortions. An oxymoron if I've ever heard of one. But anyway, so All Hallows Eve. Tomorrow is All Saints Day, followed by All Souls Day, Holy Day of Obligation on All Saints Day, November 1st. So
what are you doing? Sure I got to ask you for All Saints Day. We've actually, for the first time ever, I think maybe in all of the Sede churches that I know of, the first time ever we're going to do an All Saints Day party. It's not something they do here. So this
a party,
like with dressing up as saints and whatnot. Yeah. Do you do
that? No. I'm thinking back to my years in like the R&R. It wasn't really a thing. Christ Institute, the Institute of Christ the King, obviously was really big on the Feast of Christ the King for obvious reasons.
Right.
But yeah, never really was recognized. We do have Mass tomorrow, tomorrow, Holy Day of Obligation. So,
but no party for the kids.
Get to go to that, but no party for. We don't have a lot of kids at my chapel. It's not big. I would say probably the people at Mass, depending, it could probably get up to maybe 50. At the most. It's not a big.
We're 60. We're 60, but we got about 30 kids. It's pretty cool.
You do really? Oh no, we don't have as many.
But it's about half. It's pretty crazy. Young parish. Pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool. We have another chapel I haven't been to. It's independent, but it's also state of a contest and about the same. It's actually where Bishop McKenna. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. A pretty prominent name. Yeah, Our Lady of the Rosary in Monroe, Connecticut, where he died. And serviced for a few years. Yeah, that's a little bit bigger. So a lot of people go there. They have a morning mass, which is a bit nicer. Ours is at night. So, but yeah. So anyway, Election Day is about a week from today. So, keep those prayers up. Pray to the Blessed Mother, asking your intercession for our country. Vote for life, and more than anything, honor Christ as King. Monday Mornings with Matt and Kevin. Kevin, thank you for joining me today, sir.
Later, Matt. Have a good one.
Make the world Catholic again.